Poopity scoopity. It's Zay, and this is episode 14 of I Guess We'll Do It That Way. This is a good one, guys. It's nerdy, it's full of process, and it's even more full of tangents. You're going to love it. There's also a bit of an issue with my mic, and we did have to use the backup sound. It's going to be fine. I Guess We'll Do It That Way is presented by Mama Bear Studios. Mama Bear's mission is to create entertaining works of art that explore our humanity. Okay, here's episode 14.
Alrighty, welcome to episode 14 of I Guess We'll Do It That Way. Couldn't be happier to be here. John, I know there are thousands of places that you'd rather be.
Oh, but here I am nonetheless.
I roped you in. How's that shackle around your ankle?
I put some baby powder on it.
Did you get the package of Vaseline I sent?
I did. It's helping a lot.
Okay, good. I always feel bad about those blisters.
Hey,
Who knew that your torture chamber basement would turn into a torture chamber for your own torture?
It's torture chamber / podcast booth.
Mm-hmm. It's a great combo. Well, so John, you're gonna have. I'm a little slow today because I stayed up way too late last night. I normally am in bed by like 12:30 at the latest, and I went to bed at like 1:45.
Why?
Well, so I went to a show. So a buddy of mine that I mentioned, Brandon Gonzalez, they have a company called Sid the Cat. They're really awesome concert promoters. Brandon is helping me find a venue in LA for Rollers, which is, as you know, the movie that I'm making. Although some people might not know. Basically, I'm making a movie. We're moving towards, right now, John, I'm going to put some dates on the record for the first time. You ready for this?
Oh, baby. I've been waiting.
We are aiming for, I know you got to start your alternate production where you can borrow all my crew the same dates and stuff. So I want to make sure that you're prepared.
I'm ready.
We are moving towards a February 4th, 2019 start of production. And I've now set it on the record and I can't take it back unless I have to move it, in which case I will move it. But
and how long does that go for?
That'll be about 20 days of shooting, which is 4 weeks because we'll take weekends off. And so that, I mean, effectively right till the beginning of March.
And then after it's done being shot, you take it to a warehouse, you have it developed, you put it into the editing booth. How long does all that take?
Well, the edit booth robot is pretty sophisticated now, so he'll crank out a first draft in a couple hours. You know?
Seriously?
No, I'm just kidding. There is no editing booth robot. Well, we're gonna shoot. Well, I don't know. This is a whole nother conversation. I still have to decide if I'm gonna shoot on film, which specifically I would be shooting on Super 16 millimeter film, or if we're gonna shoot digital and go get some sweet old lenses, which actually have more of an effect in some ways on the actual quality of the image and just the way that it looks in a lot of cases. Because if you really want to make film look like digital, you can kind of do it. You just have to light it. You just use newer equipment, and then the film ultimately doesn't really look like film, which I don't understand the point of doing that, because why not just shoot digital? But I'm kind of in the opposite boat where the expense of shooting on film might end up being prohibitive, but I really like the look. I like the grainy analog vibe of film. But the nice thing is there's a thing called anamorphic lenses, which most older movies that you've probably seen, a lot of them are shot on anamorphic lenses. And that gives a really amazing kind of cinematic quality to the stuff you're shooting, regardless of whether you're shooting on film or not.
What is an anamorphic lens?
What is an anamorphic lens, you ask? This explanation is going to make cinematographers across the globe rip out their hair and put on sackcloth and ashes in repentance for my horrible explanation.
We
But
everybody can hear you stalling while you type anamorphic lens into Google.
type. No. Okay. The
Stall.
basic gist of it, yeah. You guys don't probably need to understand anamorphic lenses any better than I do, so I'm just going to give you the way I understand it. I'm going to give it to you straight.
Tell us like you know it. Don't look it up.
No, I'm not looking it up.
Oh, okay.
No. I don't know that I could actually look up a better answer. The problem is the things I don't understand are the tech, like why exactly it changes the way things look. I just know what it looks like versus what it doesn't look like. Basically, what anamorphic lenses are. So, back in the day, you had 35 millimeter film and 16, but you have film and a film for a motion picture film is, as you probably know, a long strip of frames that are connected, and they're all printed. It's emulsion. I don't know. See, now I'm really getting above my pay grade.
No,
but
you're exactly right. You got
yeah. So there's emulsion, like chemicals that are light sensitive, and so now typically with a 35 millimeter or any other kind of medium format, any other kind of still camera, you still have a roll of film, but you're only exposing one frame per click. Now, obviously, with a motion picture camera, you're setting, in an old case, you'd probably have like a crank, and now they're battery powered. But basically, you're setting a flipper that cycles, carries the film from these canisters either behind or on top of the film. There's actually a diagram of a very popular, kind of famous film camera. An Arri 35 millimeter film camera is the model for our cover art. So if you're curious, you can go look. But basically, so as most people probably know, and they're just hideously bored at this point, basically you've got these canisters with these long spools of film that are much longer, obviously, than like a still camera, because you're exposing about 24 frames a second, which is sort of the magic of movies, and that's how you create motion out of still images, which ultimately, film is just a bunch of still images strewn together. Everyone knows that. But anyway, so the goal is always to maximize the amount of space on the film for picture quality. And so what happened is that at some point they realized that if they compress the image optically by using what's called anamorphic lenses, that they could distort the image of a widescreen, because widescreen is very cinematic and a lot of people like the way it looks. But so picture a square. It's not actually like a perfect square or anything, but like picture a square, and then you picture like a relatively thin rectangle right in the middle of the square. There's unexposed film on the top and the bottom of that square, which is basically just wasted data. It's wasted detail that you're just not using.
Sure.
That the anamorphic lens gives you this like big, wide picture, like Lawrence of Arabia, and you're just like, whoa, like that's just so big, it just feels huge and detailed and like in your face, and it's beautiful. But it also has this like kind of older quality to it. That's what you get from anamorphic lenses. And the reason for that is because basically the anamorphic lens takes this big wide image and it squeezes it so that it fits into the parameters of the film and uses every little tiny chunk of it. And then you have to then sort of project it out. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so, but in the process of that squeezing, the anamorphic lenses, they just kind of, in a really pleasant way, they kind of change the quality of the image a little bit. So anyway, and some of that depends. So there's spherical and anamorphic lenses. It's all about the shape of the glass, because ultimately lenses are ground from these pieces of glass that distort images and focus them the same way that our eyes do. And lens making, man, I would love to I should probably do some research and find some cool old nerdy lens guy in LA, because there's probably at least a couple dozen of them who are just expert lens people. It would kind of be fun to have them come on and just sort of nerd out about how lenses work,
When I was a kid, I got all of this old photo projecting, like photo making equipment you know?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like a projector and all this stuff. And I set up a dark room in my attic. And there was a photo supply place down in Merchantville.
John, is this where the torture chamber basement started?
It's where my love of attics and basements came from. But I would go up there and we'd go out like into Philly and shoot on film and go home, and I could develop and print pictures in my house. It was pretty sick.
That's super cool.
Yeah. But
the first time I saw a photo get developed in front of me was kind of a magical experience.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's just a
shocking.
blank piece of paper that somehow you kind of expect it to like dissolve in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden there's this image and you're like, what?
Well, we tried all sorts of things with this. Like I had a little, like a projector where you could take an image, you could slide any image under this thing, and it had a series of mirrors, and it would project anything onto a wall. Or really any surface, it's still image.
Oh, yeah, like the things they would use in church and school and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Almost like a transparency, but it was for art. It was actually, you used it to project.
Oh, so that you could like copy stuff,
so
like,
you could trace
like murals or whatever. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, exactly. So you could still do this, I'm sure. You can go to an art place and you can buy emulsion that you can paint onto a wall. And then you take this light box in a dark room and you project it onto a square on a wall, and you can project and then have a permanent like picture a print on a wall.
Whoa. Get out of here.
No joke. Little Johnny Schimpf, that's what I was up to when I was like 12.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
I might have to figure out a way to like incorporate that into the movie somehow. Maybe just in the background.
Sure. Yeah.
I've actually thought it'd be kind of fun to like do, because there's a couple like sort of what could be borderline kind of experimental sequences in the movie. And I've actually thought it'd be kind of fun to play with making our own film stock, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just to give it like a super unique, completely different feel. I would never do that for the whole movie, but there are a couple sequences where I'm like, I want this to feel really different and kind of weird, and that could be really fun. Oh man, that would be such a cool way to decorate. Just find a big white wall and like print a picture onto the wall.
Yeah, or better yet, if you had like a dark blue wall, and you frame out with tape a section of the wall, like you have an actual piece of art projected onto the wall permanently in contrast to the rest of the wall. I'm going to do it here. So it's a great idea. I totally forgot I had all that crap when I was a kid.
I love it. Send us, keep us updated on that little project.
I'll go get some emulsion. I forget how you seal it. There's got to be a way. There's some kind of sealer, that you put on after.
I bet there's some excellent YouTube videos.
Totally. Absolutely.
We'll link to some. I'll do a little research. John and I will do a little research. We'll just get a little kit built and put the whole thing in the show notes. What do you think of that?
It is kind of surprising looking back that my parents, I'm not even totally sure they knew that I had all that stuff. Like I would go down, I would walk. It was like a 15-minute walk, and I'd walk down to the photo supply place. I knew the guy, and I would buy like these gallon jugs of chemicals and then take them back to my house, up to my attic, and
then drink them.
I wouldn't drink them, but nobody was like checking to see what I was doing. No, that's
pretty wild. Yeah.
It seems
it's kind of a different time.
I guess it was.
Even just the fact that you were walking down to the store, I mean, I know a lot of people that do that, but I feel like that's less common even than when I was growing up, which wasn't that long ago. Not that when you were growing up was growing up that long ago either, but I'm saying
I'm 57.
Back in 36. Some guy was growing up in 1936. Kind of interesting. Some guy was growing up in 36, just 36.
That's my grandma.
That's pretty wild.
That's my nana.
John, I think a lot about, maybe this is a weird thing to think about, but you know what I think a lot about? I think a lot about the guy who was born. We've sort of touched on this, but I think a lot about the guy who was born in like 526 AD. Like they don't have good records. No one's right. Rome has just been demolished at this point. Some guy was born in northern France, with no knowledge whatsoever of the fact that there have been multiple nearly globe spanning empires a mere 100 years before his birth, and he probably has no knowledge of that whatsoever. He's probably just living in like some dumpy hut,
Yeah.
It just no clue that Rome somehow managed to build an empire that was like spanning thousands of miles without telephones or anything, like, and the Colosseum. He's just like completely oblivious to all that. Less than 100 years after it existed. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's history, the world. There's so much crazy stuff happening. Like I was thinking the other day, I heard on somebody use the phrase "belly of the beast."
Yeah, what's that from?
Like he's in the belly of the beast. It's from
right.
It's from the old idea of in the Bible, there's all these prohibitions against sacrificing your kid to idols, because they used to take little babies and young kids and put them in this brazen bull, which is like a huge cow made out of metal, and they would stick the kids inside and light a fire underneath and kill them.
Whoa.
And it's just crazy to think, like, when your spouse, your life partner is pregnant, you're like driving to the store at 1 a.m. to buy ice cream and watermelons, and then your kid is born and you do all this stuff to protect them and keep them safe throughout for their life, and set them on the right path and put them in schools and do all this stuff. And eventually, in 1,000 years, it will mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That kid, as tragic as that is, that kid who got a fire lit under him in a big metal bowl, like he's gone. Like nothing matters. His parents who his parents who thought to get out of the whatever predicament they were in, like, we don't have enough water for our crops. It's so urgent that we got to kill a kid. None of that stuff matters.
Appease the gods. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, like there's an ocean where those people are standing right now. Nothing matters, and where we're standing right now, like there's going to be a glacier here in 15,000 years.
It's kind of wild. I actually
nothing matters, kids. That's the point.
Well,
how do we get off? How do we get from that to film stock to nihilism so fast?
John. No. But real quick, I would take a different tack on that, which is that nothing matters to everyone else, but it sure as hell matters to you.
Sure. Yeah. True.
And I think that's why it matters. So to me, I actually find that a very freeing thought, because I can spend less time thinking about my legacy and more time thinking about living my life in a way that is great, because who cares if who cares if I'm like the top architect in Egypt in 2036 BC or whatever, and I like get to design Pharaoh's pyramid, and I'm like, holy shit, man. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like, that's like the most lasting example of like career success that I can kind of think of at this point.
$10
or like the guy who or the guy who designs the Colosseum. Like, that dude is a baller in Rome whenever that thing was built. I don't know, maybe what was like 200 something AD. Either way, like, that dude is a baller. He's like, I have reached the pinnacle. And you know what? We still go to the Colosseum, but I don't know that guy's name. Don't even plan on finding out what his name is. And I don't care, because he's dead. He's been dead a long time. And everyone he knows has been dead for a really long time. And that's okay, because that guy was living his life, But I hope he didn't like ruin his life to get to the point where he could design the Colosseum so that he could be remembered, because fact is, nobody remembers him.
Somebody definitely knows the guy who made the Colosseum.
Somebody, but my point is that that's one of the most, I can't think of too many people who are like more remembered than that, other than like Julius Caesar. But still, like, I know Julius Caesar is a historical figure. I don't actually give a shit about like his legacy, really,
All those guys would put all of their kids in a brazen bowl and light it themselves for a chance to play the iPhone Mario game. They seriously
John,
would.
tell me about this game.
If you
I don't know
showed,
about this
it's
game.
not even that good of a game, but the point is, like, if you showed one of those dingbats, if you could somehow, like, teleport into the past and be like, yo, have you seen Flappy Birds, man?
Mm-hmm.
That
They would
guy,
think it was magic.
he would get off his horse, throw his weapons down or whatever, like his grapes or whatever he was doing, and that would be it. It would be game over. It would be the greatest thing he's ever seen.
His bolts of wool. You know, John, though, what's funny is you would take your phone back and you'd be like, I'm gonna mess these guys up. I'm gonna make them think I'm a magician. They're gonna worship me. And then your phone dies. And you realize that there are no dams and you can't create electricity.
And you know nothing.
And you know nothing. So you've got like 2.5 hours of glory because you know they're playing games on it, like you're saying, which means they're just zapping the battery. You realize about an hour and 45 minutes into it that you have no plan for how to charge it, but they certainly aren't about to give you the phone back. And so they just zap. You're like, no, wait. And then they zap the battery and that's it. And you can never, ever, because maybe you could figure out how, I don't know. It's a kind of a depressing thought.
I feel like I could charge it. If I could get metal, I feel like I could charge it.
John, I think that's the most absurd thing you've ever said.
No way, dude. I really do. I think,
John,
if I had like
here's the issue,
15
not
years...
creating electricity. Maybe, but John, here's the thing. It's not the electricity. It's creating it's creating the connecting point.
No,
you know?
I think you could go around that. I think I could take the phone apart. I could find
the actual wire that goes into the battery.
Now,
okay.
I'm not saying I could do this right now. I'm saying if
because John, you would have already been in the belly of the beast at that point, dude. They would have already been like, this guy's useless.
No, I would die from like
diphtheria
immediately or whatever disease they had. But even listen, let's say
you would
I got
bring back
the
like
phone...
some disease that they don't have, and then you just wipe out the entire Roman civilization at like 200 years before its peak, and the entire course of the world changes.
Return of the
That's kind of a good movie.
It's a great movie. But the reality is, dude, even if I got the phone charged, let's say I spent 10 years in 200 AD and I finally got it to start, what the fuck is that going to help me? I can't get on the internet.
No, you can't Google anything useful. You just get to play Flappy Birds all day.
I got Flappy Birds, yeah, till the phone busts.
You're like, can't text, can't call.
Yeah, and I don't know anything.
Can't Google sustainable agriculture practices for the 20th century, like, weirdos who are trying to like go back to the old days, but with better technology. You can't like you can't look up plans for how to build a tractor.
I'll tell you what though,
that's about the only thing you need to know.
I have a sneaking suspicion, and I don't. There are people out there who are called preppers who like prepare for the end of the world. You know, they store like guns.
There's a lot of preppers.
I think when I was a kid, right before Y2K, my dad got like 500-gallon water tanks and like stuck them in the basement.
Oh my gosh!
And
was it distilled though?
Yeah, like
you can obviously boil it, but okay, gotcha.
Right, he treated it. He did whatever he was supposed to do. But you know, it freaked me out. I was like, "What are we gonna do? We're gonna be sitting in our house in New Jersey drinking water out of the basement? Like this sounds like a terrible future."
Okay, I actually, oh man, dude, there's just so many. I love that because. So we live in like a pretty, in the grand scheme of things, I live in a pretty dumb place in the sense that like at any point there's a decent chance that wildfires I'm not too worried about because I'm in such an urban area, but there's a decent chance that all of LA could just descend into immediate chaos when a massive, massive earthquake turns the entire city into a giant flaming ball of like leaking gas and collapsed buildings and highways and bridges that no longer function. That could happen like pretty soon,
Sure.
Kelly and I've been talking about this. We need like a rendezvous point because I was realizing it wouldn't take that much to bring down the cell grid. And I was like, man, if something really bad happened, I don't know where to look for Kelly,
Yeah.
Like, do I go home?
No.
No, of course not. But then where do I go? And how do I figure out if she's alive without calling every So I was kind of like, maybe we need to like be like, okay, this is where you try to get, it'd be really simple, but go to this place first. If you can't get there, go to this place. So we narrow it down to like 3 places that one of us might be. so that there's some knowledge. Anyway, it's kind of weird to have to think about that stuff, but it's actually sort of realistic.
Immediately, you and Kelly trying to make a rendezvous point makes me think of this guy. I don't know his name, but let's call him like Mr. Morimoto. This guy who during World War II, at the end of World War II, he was in Hiroshima, and the bomb went off, and he was on the outskirts of town.
And no one knew that the bomb even existed.
Right. There's a great book by John Hersey called Hiroshima, or Hiroshima if you're Japanese, and it's very good. He was a Jesuit priest. He lived in Hiroshima when the bomb
Jesuit
went off.
Priests.
Yeah, and he helped a ton of people, and he's got all these great eyewitness descriptions of what happened right then, and it was unprecedented, totally nuts. But this guy, let's call him Mr. Morimoto, was in Hiroshima. The bomb went off, and he left town, obviously because the town got destroyed by a nuclear bomb. And he went to Nagasaki, and the bomb went off there.
No way.
There's one guy. He actually just died a few years ago.
Out of here. He didn't die of radiation poisoning or anything?
No, he was far enough away. I don't think he got hurt really, but he was in both of the cities.
Astonishing.
Yeah, he died kind of recently, and he was, I think, the only guy to survive both bombs.
Whoa. You know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I think I heard, was that on Radiolab or something?
Probably. I certainly didn't find the guy and research it.
Sure, I do think I heard an account of that. We should find out where it is and post it, because I remember it being a pretty great little story.
I went to Hiroshima when I was a younger man, and it's crazy, dude. We went to a museum there, and they've got distorted fingernails of guys who were blown up in the bomb, and it's a very weird and creepy museum. We got a ton of dirty looks.
I kind of can imagine why.
Yeah, I was like, dude, my people were in Greece pig farming when this happened. Don't look at me like that.
Man, what a crazy world we live in. I mean, back to the birth thing, dude, there were kids. There was a baby. I don't mean to be morbid or weird, because hopefully this particular baby that I'm referring to was way outside the blast radius and was okay. But there was a baby, statistically speaking. I mean, it's a large place. There was a baby, probably many babies, coming out of being pulled out of their mother, literally at the moment that the bomb went off.
Sure, yeah.
That's crazy to think about. I don't know. I love those, because sometimes you're like, oh great, a bomb went off in Hiroshima and blah, blah. That's how they teach us history. But I'm like, what about that guy who was like, whoa, the apocalypse just happened, right? Because I don't know what an atomic bomb is, because no one does, because it's a secret. But I just saw a big flashing light, and now when I drive over this bridge that gives me a decent view of downtown, it's gone. That's crazy. I mean, imagine hearing a bang. And there's this one view of LA that I really love, south of the city. It's up on it's a famous view. They shot on this, I think it's the 105. They shot it for La La Land. It's this big raised on ramp, right?
Yeah.
And you're coming, you typically are coming from the airport, and it's not always this great of a view, but every once in a while you're driving up, the sun's kind of low, so everything's got that nice orange glow. They call that golden hour in the biz, and basically everything's just perfect. And I've done this a couple times. You're coming up on this huge, very high on-ramp way south of the city, probably a solid 10 miles south of downtown. And the San Gabriel Mountains are very high. They're they're mountains. They're not like little hills. They're way out in the distance. And then downtown, which is a pretty sizable, LA, it's no New York, but it has a very sizable skyline, is just nestled in, right? Almost like, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, almost like Minas Tirith, kind of like this little city just sort of
say what?
Nestled in.
Minas Tirith?
Minas Tirith.
Oh, anyway, brother, give me a break.
Yeah, all right. Hey, I know I got some Lord of the Rings fans out there. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, hit me up. But it doesn't matter. All right, point is, this city, LA, is just kind of nestled in, and it looks tiny, but it's beautiful. And on a really clear day where the sun's low, it just looks stunning because the mountains are all lit up. And sometimes in the winter, you can actually see snow on the mountains, even though it's Southern California. And then what's really cool about it is it looks like the city, the whole city is just built into the base of the mountains because of perspective, right?
Yeah.
And you're really high, so you can see everything. You can almost see the ocean. You can see all of LA laid out in front of you. Then as you get closer, the mountains don't get any closer because they're huge and they're relatively far away. But downtown all of a sudden is just looming over you. And so you have like a completely different view, and it only takes about 10 minutes, or less than that, really, like 5, for your perspective on the city and the mountains and the whole landscape to just completely change. It's pretty stunning. But I'm just imagining if LA got blown up, not to be crazy, but hey, it's a possibility. If LA got blown up, the guy who's like driving on the 105 and just happens to be cresting that little on-ramp,
Sure,
right when the nuke goes gadoosh right over, right, however many feet, like, what is it, like half a mile or whatever, you see like some plane, like, like you hear like some stealth bomber like zip over, and then all of a sudden it's like gadoosh, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, I'm blind / downtown's gone.
Yeah.
That would be nuts.
yeah.
That's basically what happened in Hiroshima. Someone had that experience in Hiroshima.
Yeah. In that John Hersey book, there's a crowd of people out in the street after the bomb went off, and some people are on fire, buildings,
Holy
most of the
smokes.
buildings are gone, people had jumped. There's a river that runs right through Hiroshima, and all these people jumped into the river because everywhere else was on fire, and then the river caught fire, or the river started boiling.
No.
Yeah, so people are
The
boiling.
river boiled?
Yeah, the river started to boil. People are jumping in the river because they're on fire. I mean, it's like a hellscape.
Man. And
But-
dude, these people are totally innocent,
Yeah, they had
What a
right.
shit show.
Yeah, so people are standing out a few minutes after, and it's just complete pandemonium. And they had no idea what a nuclear bomb was, obviously, as you said. And people had sort of guessed, and rumors are spreading that what they did was they just flew a bunch of planes over and dumped gasoline on the city and then lit it.
Basically pre-napalm.
Exactly. And then what kind of eerily what happened was there was a light rain, coincidentally, that started, and the people in the city just went into full-blown panic because they thought it was gasoline coming down right before they're about to ignite it again and kill them all.
Whoa.
Just like so dark, man. Really dark stuff.
Oof.
Yeah, but we
Wow.
got some looks in that museum.
Yowza meowza.
Not exactly sure
Well,
why. Wasn't my fault.
Man, I love stuff like that, though. I think it makes us... I get sad for people who never sort of think about that kind of stuff, because that's part of our sort of human experience,
Sure.
And I think a lot of people just live in their little suburban bubbles and pretend like none of that ever happened. They like to sanitize it. I just feel like that would be so bleak in a different way,
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking that even after seeing what that type of destruction looks like, we just went full steam ahead with that and created bombs that are 10, 20, 50, 100 times
hundreds
bigger.
in some cases. Yeah, there's some. I mean, the Tsar bomb, which is a Russian one, I think they felt shockwaves 500 miles away.
Yeah.
In the blast radius. I mean, we should link to it. It's a really shocking. The stats are kind of insane. John, what do you think about doing a little transition into some mail?
Oh, do we have some mail?
We do have some mail. I think you're gonna love this mail.
Really?
You're gonna love this. So our boy Dan the Peacock Man. You remember Dan?
Oh, how could I forget?
Dan's just a great guy. Dan keeps coming through in the clutch. Faithful listener. He's getting a t-shirt. Dan, t-shirt coming your way. Text me your address, bro. Because I gave him my number because he's just always feeding me like good stuff. I'm like, dude, we gotta have like a direct line. And he's taken advantage of it in the best possible way. So Dan heard us talking about Ted. We love oh my gosh, let's do a quick Ted inventory. We've got Ted Bundy.
Oh boy.
We've got Ted Turner.
We've
basically devoted an
Ted
entire
Kaczynski?
episode. We have not talked. We'll save him though. We'll talk about Ted Kaczynski soon, because we don't need any more Teds quite yet.
Right.
We've got Teddy Bronson, clearly.
TB.
We've got Teddy Cruz, because I like to call Tom Teddy.
That's his
'Cause we're
Scientology
buds.
name.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also a Scientologist, so Actually, that's a whole other thing. I actually know a couple Scientologists
Nuh-uh.
who are, I totally do. And they're really normal people.
Yeah, are
and
they?
I'm going to be they totally are. I'm going to be super honest and say,
You're thinking about
if those
joining.
guys are listening, I think Scientology's crazy, but also they're super normal. And I kind of want to have them, who knows? I'm not going to name names not because it's like a big secret, but because I would not like for someone necessarily to sort of talk about my faith without me being present, without us having sort of pre-discussed that to some extent. But at least something that I wasn't like very public about, if that makes any sense. But I think I would like to talk to one of these Scientologist guys, because they're filmmakers for one, so they have some interesting perspective. They're making a movie right now. They're like France or something. But I don't know. I'm curious about Scientology from their perspective. All right, but let's move on. We've got all of our Teddies. We were talking about Ted Turner's 15 billion acre bison farm. Remember this? This was a while back. For anyone who doesn't know, Ted Turner has how many hectares is it, John? It was like
hundreds.
It was
an
insane.
Thousands.
I think it was hundreds of square miles. I mean, it was a shocking number of shocking amount of space. Anyway, so we were talking about bison, and I was like, I want to try some bison. Dude, guess what?
Tell me.
Dan, who also is our Peacock hookup,
2 million acres. Holy mackerel!
That's insane.
Ted,
what are you doing with it, babe? I think he's building Westworld.
Dude, he looks like every character in Westworld.
Anthony Hopkins. I think he's building Westworld. That's what I think.
Oh my gosh, dude, you're right.
I think he's building Westworld.
Of him, dude.
Our audience can't see it. Describe it for us.
It looks like it's a green screen picture or photoshopped, but it's like this, like the Sierra Nevadas in the background, and like a rolling plains in the foreground, and Ted wearing a cowboy getup, standing very proud in the foreground.
I would like to visit one day.
Montana. Okay.
All right, but so I think he's got a couple actually. So anyway, this is really taking a long time. I'm sorry, everybody, but Dan texted and said, "Hey, by the way, I grew up just down the street," because you remember he was the guy who was also hooking us up with peacocks, because we were like, no one's raising peacocks. And
right.
Dan was like, oh yeah, by the way, they are.
Oh.
He grew up right down the street from a buffalo/bison farm.
You don't say.
Yep. And
wait, I thought we killed all the bison.
No, they're still around. They just don't exist wildly, I believe.
Oh, is that true?
But maybe they've been reintroduced. They've done some interesting things. If you've never tried bison before, it's easy to cook. Ask us for instructions and follow these tips. It's basically some steak tips. John, I think you should try cooking some bison.
Ugh.
No. Just try it. Maybe get some good bison steak. And you gave us some great steak tips. Make some clarified butter and make a bison steak for you and your boo, and report back to us. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. They have gator.
I think it could be good.
They got frozen gator at the supermarket here. You ever have gator?
I've never tried gator.
I went to everybody listening out there, take a minute, take a week out of your schedule, book a trip to Florida's Everglade National Park. It's so sick. It's crazy. Get on a fan boat, go down there, do the CSI thing. It's nuts, dude. It is nuts down there.
That sounds kind of sweet.
Dude, Everglades. It's crazy. It's like going to Jurassic Park, dude.
Dan also, John, I think Dan has given us so much. He's just been so generous with us that I think we should also answer his follow-up question. Dan said, by the way, what podcasts do you guys listen to? Kind of as a little bit of a segue. John, would you like to open that up?
There's a new season of Serial. Came out yesterday.
Okay, give me the log line.
Pitch
it to me, John.
It should be like Serial. We had a really great first season.
Wait, real quick though, John. Are you talking Serial season 1? I mean, is this in your mind Serial season 3 or Serial season 2?
That's such a
because S-Town is technically a Serial season, and
yep.
Oh man, fun fact actually. Can I just interject?
No,
really
wouldn't
fast?
this be the fourth then? Because you had series 1 with the murder, 2 would be
Yep.
Bergdahl, 3 would be S-Town.
Oh, Bergdahl. That's right.
And
okay,
this would be 4.
You're right. So this is technically 4. Okay,
This
so
is
you
4.
do consider that all part of the same series.
I think
Quick
so.
fun fact. My home that my parents live in is basically the neighborhood where Adnan and all of the theoretical crimes took place. And the Best Buy, yes, exactly. No, I knew every single location that they were debating, including the Best Buy parking lot. I was home for Christmas when cereal was the rage,
Yeah.
And I literally went by the Best Buy parking lot because I had to go to that Best Buy because that's the Best Buy I go to.
What?
And I was like, let me double check that this is not possible, because I'm pretty sure I remember there not being nearly enough space to strangle someone in this parking lot. And I went back. I mean, it's like a 200 square foot chunk of parking lot on the side. It's not even like, because that was sort of one of the theories that they did this behind the Best Buy. Bullshit. I'm not saying it didn't happen somewhere, but it definitely did not happen there. Also, Leakin Park, which is where they potentially buried the body, that actually is a pretty common place for bodies to get dumped.
Have you dumped a body there?
Well, we'll talk about it off the record.
You're more into the pond, dumping them in the pond.
Yeah. So you were saying Serial season 16.
Yeah, Serial. They just keep going. So the new Serial season is out as of yesterday. I think there's two episodes out. It's pretty good. It follows the criminal court system in Cuyahoga County, Cleveland, Ohio. And it just, if you have any sort of sneaking suspicion that the legal system is a total piece of crap, you're about to not be disappointed. It's basically just like poor people getting screwed over and over again. It's horrifying.
Man.
But, they do it. It's such a well-produced show that they can kind of make anything interesting, although the Bo Bergdahl episode was kind of weak.
That was not my favorite season. Dude, I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Yep.
And say that I think S-Town is... there's so many different kinds of podcasts that you really can't pick like the best.
Yeah.
But within its vertical, it's the best. I mean,
yeah.
It's so... Everyone, if you've not listened to S-Town, it is such a perfect, singular, weird, just unprecedented work of art. It's hard to wrap my head around it. I need to re-listen to it for a third time, but it's so incredible.
Right after I listened to S-Town, which it's very good. It's the kind of show where you're just dying to listen to the next one. It's very, very good. I still think about it on a regular basis. Yeah, same. It's very well constructed. So I was kind of hungry for that sort of format, and I stumbled across a podcast that I want to really recommend. It's a serialized thing like Serial was, so there's like a season. And we'll put a link to it, but it's called The Polybius Conspiracy. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't. I'm excited.
Okay, so... there's a little catch to this. So I recommended this to a couple people right after S-Town was over, and I got really into it. It's like, 10 parts or whatever. Okay. And it's sort of these people looking into this old theory about a video game a video game console that was going around in the 80s, and apparently there was some weird, sinister stuff that happened surrounding this game. Like people went missing. It might have affected people's mental states.
Whoa!
This
is in the 80s.
This was in the late 80s.
So, was this like a type command basic style
it's like
DOS game?
No, it's a video game console like you'd see at an arcade. So
like an Atari.
Yes, okay. Like a what's Gallica? Is that what it's called? Gattaca.
Gattaca.
No, that's a movie.
It's
right. the Galaxy, Space Invader type.
Yeah,
games.
Or Space Invaders or King Kong. That's not what his name is.
Kong.
King Kong?
King Kong.
Gosh, I'm an idiot.
But I recommended this podcast to a ton of people. It's a great sort of whodunit.
Give us the name again.
It's called The Polybius Conspiracy.
Can you spell that?
Polybius. I'm pretty sure. Polybius.
I think there's a good reason why no one knows about this podcast, because they need to name it something else.
Well, that's just the name of the story they're following on this one.
Sure.
Anyway, I think everybody should listen to it, and there is we could talk about it later, but there is sort of a catch to it.
Well, I still don't know what it's about though.
They're looking.
Don't give me the catch, but
well, they're looking into claims that this video game that there's very sort of little information about.
So they're like investigating the video game.
They're investigating the claims surrounding this video game because the video game popped up for like a month in Seattle back in the 80s.
Whoa.
It popped up, a bunch of people played it, and then it disappeared. And all the people that played it claim all this really weird stuff happened to them. Like their houses got broken into.
Whoa.
One kid lost his mind completely, and they are attributing a lot of this stuff to the video
John,
game.
when was this podcast published?
Like in the last 2 years.
Okay, cool. That sounds awesome. All right, we'll definitely link to that. So yeah, there you go. We've got new season of Serial. We got the Polybius conspiracies. We've got S-Town. If you haven't listened to S-Town, just stop listening to this podcast for sure. Like, don't listen to any more episodes of this until you at least listen to the first episode of S-Town. And I really, if you're into film, if you aren't listening to Film Spotting, Film Spotting is just an absolute, it's two critics from Chicago. I mean, there's like 700 episodes, and I just can't speak highly enough about how their ability to sort of make criticism interesting. And you can always jump in, but I actually, for new people, I typically recommend like scroll through the entire history and just find, they do a lot of lists, you know, they'll do like top 5 from this director, or they'll do marathons where they'll watch like a bunch of movies from a director that they aren't familiar with, who's kind of considered a great, or they'll talk about contemporary stuff. They'll do top 10 lists to recap years. They do in-depth reviews. It's just really great. But I tend to recommend go back through and just sort of shamelessly cherry pick stuff that looks interesting to you. So if you see the name of a director you like, boom, that's probably a great place to start. Like one of my favorite episodes ever, I don't actually know what number it is, but it wouldn't be hard to find out, is the Royal Tenenbaums episodes. But that's a great show, Film Spotting. Check that one out too. All right, so we got one more piece of mail.
Hold up. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention. I got a little Easter egg podcast recommendation for you. Easter egg podcast recommendation. You got to look this one up, folks. It's called Scuffed. Have you heard of this podcast?
It's newer, right?
It's a year and a half.
Okay.
Just look it up. Do yourselves a favor.
What is it?
It's a soccer podcast.
Ooh, I can get into a soccer podcast.
Really?
I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to listen to it every day.
Yeah, if you're into soccer, or if you're not. I'm not into soccer. My own son tried out for soccer, and they're like, "Yeah, work with your dad at home." And it's like, dude, I do not know the rules of soccer. I don't know the positions. Well, I mean, I know you kick the ball and run around. And
John, I'm not trying to tell you how to parent, but there are quite a few resources out there that you could probably, including Scuffed, I imagine, that you could do quite a bit of learning about soccer, at least to play at a 10-year-old level.
9-year-old level, but yeah, I mean, I guess.
Well, by the time he's good enough to make the team, he may be 10.
He plays soccer like me. That is to say, it's a lot of like standing around looking confused.
But
a
lot of swarming.
A lot of character being built.
Good recommendation. Scuffed. There we go.
Look it up.
Check out Scuffed if you're into podcasts. Scuffed. All right, so we've got some mail that we teased last week. We teased it last week. It's from Archie. This is in answer to several episodes ago. We were getting kind of deep, and we basically said, John, you suggested go ask an older person in your life. Ask them point blank, did you do it right? You know, like, are you happy with the way you've lived your life? And then I got super interested. You got super interested in hearing that from people who are listening to the show. And to be totally honest, we haven't gotten that many responses. I think in part because people are still catching up on episodes, in part because some people find us later and didn't hear that episode. But just for a quick recap, we do want to hear from you. Write us in. You can write us at, I guess we'll do it that way, or thatway.fm is our website. There's like 10 different ways to contact us there. There's a contact form. You can email info@mamabearstudios. You can tweet at us. I'm bad at Twitter. John, you need to take over Twitter. That's an off-the-air conversation.
Oh,
but I'm
dude, let me take over the Twitter. Can I do whatever I want?
That. Oh, of course you can.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be all.
So
yeah, okay,
just
I got
memes, funny me. All right, don't give it away too much. I'm excited.
Right.
I might have to start following our Twitter.
I didn't even know we had one.
Anyway,
you learn something new
Archie
every day.
wrote in. Yeah, it's at That Way Pod.
Oh, word! I'll follow it. Psych!
Yeah,
I don't have a
perfect.
Twitter.
Well, so Archie wrote in, I think, a really thoughtful answer that I think could hopefully encourage some other people to sort of engage with that conversation as well, because I'm super interested in all of these people because everybody's super different.
Love the comic.
All right, so I'm going to read
Archie.
Archie's letter.
Love the comic, Archie.
He's a rich man. All right, this is from Archie. Subject line: Doing life right. Archie, thanks for making it so clear. Archie writes, I'm writing in to tell both of you scrubs. I might just have to stop with that.
Wow. Come on, Archie.
Bye, Archie.
You had me up until Scrubs.
Yeah, so you didn't have me for long. Way to set it up strong. I'm writing in to tell both of you scrubs that I'm doing the rightest of all your doing life right. Archie, let's get some writing comprehension
let's get this grammar right, buddy.
All right, I'm writing in to tell both of you scrubs. Let's find a more creative. All right, let's just turn this into a critique session of Archie's email. That I'm doing life the rightest, Archie. Rightest is not a word, of all your listeners. Archie, I beg to differ. You might need to go back to high school, do a little brushing up. Archie seems to be a math guy, though, so we'll give him a pass. I kind of stumbled into a career as a naval officer. Shout out to my dad who completed my full application to the Naval Academy. Probably for the best, Archie, because if they asked you to write a personal essay, I don't know if they would have accepted you.
This is where Archie gets kicked out of his career by accidentally letting it slip that his dad did the paper for him.
Oh, boy. Archie,
don't you have to
might have messed up, bro.
Hold the phone, though. Archie, don't you have to get like your congressman to sign a letter of recommendation for you to go to the Naval Academy?
I think it's recommended to do that. I don't know if it's required. But a lot of people, quote, join the Navy to see the world and end up spending 9 months at a time on a boat in the middle of the ocean. That does sound terrible. After like the first 3 days. I've been in the Navy since 2013, and since then I've lived on the beach in Pensacola, the beach in Jacksonville, Florida, and in Hawaii. Okay, that does sound kind of dope.
Hold up, though.
I've also lived in
yeah. We got three of the three places are wiped out by natural disaster. There's a volcano in Hawaii, Pensacola and Florida and Wilmington are gone.
Jacksonville, but also probably
gone. It's
gone.
Yeah. Okay, so nice job, Archie. You're 3 for 3.
Yeah, Archie.
Stay away from Chattanooga,
leaving a trail of disaster behind him. He says, I've also lived in the Great Pacific Northwest, where I got to go snowboarding nearly every weekend. Wow. I guess this is what our tax dollars are being used for.
Yeah, what a hero. Thanks for keeping us safe, Archie.
Love you, Archie. Thanks for writing in. Also, we should just say, if you write in, we may make fun of you.
Hold up.
I hope that does not discourage you from writing in.
Wait a second. His entire rationale for claiming that he's doing it right is that he lived on a couple beaches and he gets
He's
to
not
snowboard.
done yet. He's not done yet.
Oh, my
He's
bad.
Not done yet.
You were wrapping it up like he was done. I was like, dude, Archie, you need to get some kids or some friends, my dude.
So he says, when I'm working on deployment, I've gotten to visit more than 10 countries, including Italy, Germany, Poland, Spain, Greece, and Japan. That does sound kind of dope. Mm-hmm. Life in the Navy hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows, though. I've missed out on several monumentous occasions, including 3 of my best friends' weddings.
Yeah, thanks,
Interesting.
Archie. Former best friends
Overall,
now.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, I would say I'm doing life about 85% right. I think that's about the percentage you were at, John. He says, overall, I would say I'm doing life about 85% right, with the big downfall being the fact that I'm away from friends and family way too much. But I am willing to bet that 85% is about 40% higher than the other peasants that listen to this podcast.
Wow.
Archie.
You mean taxpayers?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Archie, why don't you contribute something to our economy, bruh?
This is outrageous. So,
also, though, I do appreciate his honesty.
I guess I appreciate your candor and just letting me know how my tax dollars are being squandered.
Oh, man. he is working, I assume. I mean, he's flying around the world.
Yeah, it sounds like it's
to
snowboarding.
Italy and Germany. Well,
Come
you know,
on.
everybody's got to have their off days.
I don't know. Do your off day on your own dime, Archie.
I mean, I think in theory the Navy's probably not paying for his snowboarding.
Can we
adventures.
turn this into Can I turn this into like a libertarian rant podcast?
I think let's do, John, I'm going to give you 1.3 minutes for an episode of Libertarian Ranting with John and Zay. All right. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Libertarian Ranting with John and Zay. This is your host, Zay. John, that's your cue.
Oh, you're going to try to refer to me by my government name?
Oh.
Or my human name? Is that what libertarians say? I don't actually know. I'm not a government slave. I feel
John,
like are we trying to get kicked off of Twitter?
Do you have
and
a social security number?
You mean a slave number?
What's your libertarian rant, John? You got about 60 seconds.
I don't
left.
even
Let's
have
hear
one. I'm not begrudging Archie for traveling the world. I think that's great, Archie. And
yeah, should we add a little caveat? Like, for real, we do appreciate people who serve the country in the military. Obviously,
yeah.
We are totally just riffing on Archie, in part because he's actually a friend of mine, and in part because he kind of had it coming by putting scrubs in the first sentence of his
Who's a scrub
email.
now, buddy?
Yeah, scrub the deck, bud.
No, thanks
Why
for swabbing the deck.
Why don't you go scrub the deck or swab it, whatever you're supposed to do to decks.
I know it's hard to get into the Naval Academy, and I know Archie's going to be a hardworking dude. And you know what? He's the kind of guy that we want defending our country from whatever we need defending from.
Yeah, unless he's on the snowboard path fields.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Why was it so hard just now for me to come up with a real word relating to snowboarding? Like I ski on a regular basis. Like I know the slopes. Mm-hmm. I was looking for slopes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Couldn't find it anywhere. It was just gone. That said, Archie, thanks for your candor.
Yeah, I'm glad you feel like that.
Yeah, I'm excited for him, Archie. I'm excited for you that you feel like you're doing it 85% right, and the gauntlet has been thrown down. I mean,
think it's
he
cool
says
that Archie sounds like he's like a minor character in a Tom Clancy novel.
Yeah, he's like blowing people away on the side, and then he takes snowboarding breaks.
Like he's like he just adds to the color a little bit. Like he's a character that Jack Ryan might bump into. They might play golf or something. Archie, keep it up, my dude.
Keep it up. Also, yeah, like we're saying, Archie just threw down the gauntlet. He says 85%, which is his number for his rating for himself, is 40% higher than the other peasants that listen to this podcast. Hey, peasants, let's hear. Get back at him. I did have one exciting thing that I'm doing today, kind of weirdly enough relating to our conversation about lenses and the way things look. Basically, what's happening is I'm not going to mention the name quite yet, but I hope eventually I can. I'm going to hang out with some folks who have a really cool post-production facility. And in a general sense, post-production just refers to editing and, the edit robot booth, like we were talking about earlier, which does not exist. But I'm going to check out this really cool post facility. They do color, they do sound, they do all that kind of stuff. And it's only a couple miles from my house on Sunset Boulevard. And I'm going to go over there and talk to them about the movie, because apparently they're interested in giving us a good deal on helping us do post for the movie, which is super exciting. So I'm going to head over there and
Do they have like a lot of businesses, when you're trying to drum up support, do they have like a guy out front that has like editing, color correction on a sandwich board that he's just spinning, like flopping around, a sign, doing flips and stuff? Half price editing. Color correction.
I don't think they do, but I'm very much going to suggest that they do that.
They could get a ton of business.
Would you consider making that your new job?
I don't have the dancing or sign flipping abilities, but I'd give it a whirl.
Okay. Oh, was that pun intended? drums don't make that sound. Anyway, I'm going over there. I'm super pumped because we're going to have hopefully just a kind of a conversation about like, yeah, what I want the movie to look like. And they're going to be like, oh, dude, that's impossible. No, I'm just kidding. They're not going to say that. Hopefully they're going to say, oh, yeah, like, sounds like a great fit. Let's do this thing. So hopefully I'll have some updates on that soon. And, enjoy your existential crisis that I have a feeling we launched many of you into by talking about Hiroshima.
Not Archie. Archie's just out hitting the waves and the slopes, smile on his face.
Well, he hasn't heard the episode yet. Now he's going to just probably quit and go bury his head in the sand.
I don't think Archie quits. I think he's going to start a competing podcast.
Just to torpedo us.
Torpedo, exactly. Yep, he's a Navy man.
No pun intended.
Yeah, he's a Navy man. It's all he knows.
All right, well, Archie, game on, baby. We just lost like one of our 3 listeners. Archie's gone. Teddy Bronson is really offended by some of our conversations about Teds.
Get over it, you bratwurst-eating idiot.
John, we do not talk to Teddy like that. Oh my gosh. No, Teddy would never actually leave. He would just smolder, And I don't like a smoldery Teddy. I like a nice, clean, happy Teddy.
Is it getting are you guys getting into fall down there? Is it getting wintry over there yet?
Yeah. It doesn't really ever turn into fall or winter. I mean, we're turning into the LA version of fall and winter, which is that it's not real hot all day. And the mornings are cool. The mornings and evenings do border on fall at times.
Yeah, we get a
very
long,
nice.
But we get a long season down here. It's like 90 sort of, but it's starting to get cooler at night and stuff. And pretty soon we're going to be putting on sweaters and making fires outside, dude. It's, to be honest, kind of a magical time of year. We got a pumpkin.
John, you're
dude, it's 90. Me. It's like 92 degrees. We got a pumpkin. Yo, get a pumpkin. Start wearing sweaters. Let the season, just let it come to you, man. Embrace it 100%.
John,
fires in the fireplace.
Killing me.
Apple cider, dog.
Oh, dude. I don't even have a place to make a fire. I live in a stinking apartment. We are actually...
Just go to a vacant building and burn it down.
I know. Well, speaking of life updates, we're actually... we're looking at a new place tomorrow as of this recording.
A new apartment.
Yeah, well, our lease is pretty close to up, so we're kind of ready to move further east.
Yeah.
Into the neighborhoods east of LA, as opposed to right now we're technically a little northwest of downtown LA. Not that means you're actually northwest of anything, because the reality is that LA is just more of a region. But we're moving east of where we are now, and you can just get a lot more. Put it this way: you can get a house with a yard for about the same price that we're paying for an apartment right now on this side of town. And it's less convenient, it's less cool, but you know what, I'm too old for cool, dude. I don't care about cool that much. Well, plus it's still like 10 minutes from downtown. It's not like we're like moving out into the suburbs or anything.
I know I did everybody a solid by introducing you to the word obstreperous, but now apropos of almost nothing, I'm going to say I started listening to
Webster here.
I started listening to Rosemary's Baby on tape, okay? And
who wrote that?
I don't know, somebody. Nobody famous. Who knows? But the story, it's a thinly veiled... So the story takes place in some old apartment building in New York City, and it's supposed to be the Dakotas, where John Lennon got shot. It's like what, on the Upper West Side, and it's this old, like, sort of classic structure in New York. And
cool.
And it's got a bunch of history because like tons of celebrities live there. But the point of Rosemary's Baby is that this young couple move into the apartment building. Somebody had just died in there. There's a bunch of like sort of weird stuff going on in the building. And it turns out that a bunch of the people in the building are like in this satanic cult, and they're trying to impregnate Rosemary with the child of Satan.
Right? Why are you reading this book?
Well, I don't know. It's a classic, Rosemary's Baby.
I know, I'm just kidding. So it's a famous movie, too.
It is a famous movie. Well, so the character in the movie, who's like the guy who introduces Rosemary into this cult activity with her being an unwitting participant, his name is Roman. His first name is Roman. Famously, the movie was made by sex offender Roman Polanski, Made the movie Rosemary's Baby. He bought a house out in L.A. around the time that he's making this movie. And his wife, who was an actress, Sharon Tate, lived in that house. He was out in New York or wherever filming the movie. And his wife got murdered in that house by Charles Manson.
It's a really sad story.
She was pregnant at the time.
It's insane.
And her,
specifically, she was murdered by Manson's accomplices,
right?
Correct?
Yeah, because
the people that he basically brainwashed, which became which became a big court case because they were non-repentant, but ultimately people were like, are they actually responsible for their actions because he was the puppet master? But basically, that was known as kind of an interesting, especially in hindsight, kind of an interesting inflection point in Hollywood, because there was sort of this, Hollywood was very small. It still is, but it was very small, and a lot of people knew everybody, and there was kind of this free love thing going on.
Yeah.
Just the end of the 60s, that whole era, there were a handful of things, that being one of them. Also, the stabbing at the Rolling Stones concert out here, Give Me Shelter, amazing documentary. Can't recommend it highly enough. But there were the series of innocence destroying,
right?
Basically, end of the hippie movement,
end of the
almost
Summer of
before
Love.
it even began. End of the Summer of Love, including these murders, and it had a pretty significant impact in some ways on the future history of filmmaking as well, because it had a pretty massive impact on sort of the up and coming Hollywood generation. Anyway, with that, we should wrap this bad boy up.
It seems like everybody went from marijuana or pot to cocaine. Is that what happened out there in Hollywood?
I do think that happened to some extent.
Okay,
yeah.
Well.
We'll do some more research on it. Speaking of things to recommend, I got a great book if you want to know more about all this. There's a book called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls by a brilliant guy named Peter Biskind, who also wrote an amazing book called, what's the one about the 90s called? Hold on. Why am I blanking on it? I've read both of them and I love them both. But Raging Bull, Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, classic Hollywood book, really details the rise of sort of what a lot of people consider one of the greatest eras of filmmaking in the 70s.
Sure.
It sort of tracks what was happening in the 60s that paved the way for it. It's incredibly well researched. It talks about everybody like Spielberg and Coppola, and it's really juicy gossip, but it's also just incredibly well researched and incredibly well written, and it's really kind of an incredible book. And then he also wrote a second book called Down and Dirty Pictures. I don't know why I was blanking on this. Down and Dirty Pictures.
This guy loves alliteration.
Exactly. But this one, Down and Dirty Pictures, Miramax, Sundance, and the Rise of Independent Film. Anyone who read this book knew without a doubt that Harvey Weinstein was a complete psychopath.
Oh, really?
And I think, he dishes big time. He also talks about the impact that he had on Hollywood, but he dishes. And, I'm amazed that I have a feeling Peter doesn't live in LA, because I feel like this would be a difficult place for him to live with the way he dishes. But
all the dirty looks he would get. What are they going to do to him?
I don't know, but I'm just saying it would be annoying. It would be frustrating, I bet. But both books, man, they're just so good. But I really recommend, if you're into kind of understanding the Hollywood of the 70s and how the movies like The Godfather and other movies like that are sort of just these ultra classics came about, and even the beginning of the blockbuster with movies like Jaws and Indiana Jones and Star Wars. He just goes into really immense detail, and it's kind of an incredible book. It's not hard to read. That's the best part about it. It's kind of a page turner.
Easy Rider, Raging Bull.
Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. We'll link to both. But anyway, on that note, John, it's been a real pleasure. I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but we'll talk about something interesting, maybe.
Maybe I'll go to the local library and get that book, and then we'll yak about it.
I would love that, John. Maybe I'll reread it.
Do people still go to libraries?
I gotta say, guys, the library is an incredible resource. It sounds so silly to say that. It's such a gift that we have libraries.
Microfilm. You can make copies. You can.
It's insane.
Oh, you could get VHS tapes.
No, speaking of being the guy who was born in 463 AD or whatever, or 563 AD. I mean, if that guy had access, well, he probably didn't know how to read, but if that guy had access to a library, I mean, knowledge is, it's kind of an incredible gift. Plus, a lot of libraries, you can get ebooks now. I actually read books from the library on my Kindle all the time. Check it out. Your local library probably has a program.
Yeah, nothing like finding out, as a young man, finding out that your local library has an erotic fiction section.
That's for sure what we're discussing next week. And with that,
let me be the first to say thanks for tuning in for episode 14 of I Guess We'll Do It That Way. If LA doesn't get destroyed first, we will see you again next week. And don't forget, write in with your take on your life. Are you doing it right? Are you happy? Are you not happy? We want to know. We really are curious, and we promise that we'll try to be nice. Today's show was produced and edited by me, executive producer John Schimpf. Intro music is The Get Down by Summer Dregs. That lovely outro music that also has a lot of thematic relevance to today's show is The Band from Nowhere by Tom Paulus and Max Bells. Our cover art was designed by Nate Giordano. This has been a production of Mama Bear Studios.
In the heat of the desert air, the rambling journey is all I know. It's your boy.